Safe Point. Tonight we have Jess Brohard on. Jess is a wonderful human being. She's a shoutcaster. She's a badass. You know her from Twitch. You know her from just her being amazing on Twitter and all over the place. And now you know her from this show. You're going to get to know her like you have not before. Jess, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I just like yanked out my earbud as you did that. So like I could still hear you, but I just felt like an idiot. Goodness, talking is difficult. And it's what I do for a living.
So hard.
But I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. I'm so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time. If you feel like you've seen Jess before, it's probably because you've seen her everywhere. So that's where you've seen her. But yeah, those are all her links. Please be sure to follow. But we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna ask the hard-hitting questions. What is your social security number? But seriously, thank you so much for being here. So give us like the lowdown. Tell us about yourself. And I guess for people who are like, where have I seen you? Tell us where we've seen you.
Yes. So I've been around the internet for a while. I've done many different things on the internet. Currently, what I do is I'm a host. So primarily what I've been doing for the last couple of years. Hold on, I think I have to sneeze. I'm so sorry.
How dare. This interview's over. Nobody sneezes on my show.
It's stuck in there, so it might come out later. So I'm sorry, but there's
a
sneeze. There's a sneeze in there somewhere. I wish it would come out. All right.
Please. First of all, that's an awful feeling when you can't sneeze, but like, please don't apologize for having a bodily function. Thank you.
I just feel that this show so far has been like, I feel like it's anyway. All right. It's fine. It's authentic. It's raw. We're going to nail it. So
fuck it. We're doing it live.
Primarily where people might have seen me is doing the interviews for the Call of Duty League. And I also have a segment that I host for GameStop TV. So if you ever go into GameStop, you might see me talking or hear me talking rather, so maybe one of those places where you've seen me. Or other random little things that I've hosted. Like I also have this random weird viral video. I'll say this, that if you've ever heard of the Xbox Wheel of Unfairness, that is a very, very funny, very cringe video from I was hosting at Comic-Con in 2015 for like this like Xbox lounge that they were doing. And I was like giving out prizes and it was like this virtual wheel. And so basically like an attendee would come up and I'd be like, all right, you're going to spin the wheel. Like you might win an Xbox, you might win a controller, you might win whatever. And they spin the wheel. And then it happened that like every single person who won an Xbox already had one. And every single person who won a controller didn't have an Xbox. So it was, and like these like little kids are very, there's this, like, they're very underwhelmed by winning, you won an Xbox One and they're like, yay, they're just like, they don't care. So it's a very, very funny, it's a very funny video.
I feel like I have seen that. I feel like I have. If nothing else, I've probably heard of its gloriousness. So there's that.
I wasn't expecting it to like, the only reason I bring it up is because like to this, like on a daily basis these days, people mention it to me. Like they will leave me a comment somewhere like on my own YouTube channel, or like they'll like tweet at me, or like apparently that video is now making the rounds on TikTok. So people keep like tagging me there and being like, is this you? Did you know about this? And I'm like, yes, of course. That's me in the video. Of course I knew about this.
I'm standing here hosting the thing. So I was there. I was present. I was in my body for that event.
Yeah. So anyway, that was
awesome. Okay. All right. So they've seen you on the internet is what it all comes down to. That's excellent.
That's true.
Excellent. So you are super peppy. All of your tweets are super I don't think I've not laughed at one of your tweets. I definitely laughed snorted at a few of them. They're amazing. They're very well done. Your recent one on Jurassic Park was just beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm not going to quote it because I will do a terrible job. Please just go to Jess's Twitter and, look at them with your eyeballs. Okay. So why all this peppiness, all this excitement, like what brings you to, other than my harassing you, what brings you to talk about mental health?
Lots of things. I think like obviously my own mental health and struggles, my mental health journey and stuff, which I'm sure we're like going to get into, and I can kind of, start that a little bit, but like, I think it's mental health now is becoming a lot more like normalized and mainstream to talk about. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think it's because of like people who talked about it when it was a little more uncomfortable to talk about. And like, I'm always glad when a friend of mine is willing to talk about like mental health, or like I'm always for like normalizing seeing a therapist. Like I remember I had lunch with a friend a couple weeks ago and she kind of like leans over and in a hushed tone, she's like, I've been seeing a therapist once a month. And I was like,
Once a
girl, I've
month?
been,
Get in the back of the line, lady.
yeah. I was like, I've been seeing a therapist once a week for the last couple of years. Like, I'm glad that you have also, but like, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to whisper about.
You don't need to whisper about that. Yeah.
Right. I think therapy is for everyone, like regardless of if you think you have, because here's another like big piece of the puzzle is I think a lot of people are kind of in denial about certain mental health things, like they don't even realize, like they have become so accustomed to feeling the way they feel that they're just like, this is how life is. Like that's how I was.
Yes.
I was like, this is just how life feels. Life is just a little bit prickly and it just hurts a little bit all the time.
All the time.
And that's just
You're
life.
just a little miserable. You just gotta be a little miserable. Just a little bit. Just that's what keeps it spicy, but also terrible. And makes you feel like things are dark and not worth living. That's everybody, right? That's totally
everybody feels that way, right? They just walk around. And I was like, and I like, you know, this is, you know, obviously as we'll get into, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm almost 3 years sober, but like, that's one of the reasons why I drank so much is because I think like, I just thought like, again, I thought like, this is just what life feels like. And some people are better equipped to deal with it. And I'm not, so I have to like drink to kind of stop those feelings almost, you know? And obviously that didn't work, but
okay, so I mean, you shared it. The cat's out of the bag. Like that's the thing, and it's also on every. It's also on every poorly made YouTube thumbnail that I may have created today. But we're talking about substance.
Esports.
But okay, I take full credit for it because I should have seen that. But you looked at it too, and you said, "Yeah, this checks out."
Yeah, I think I even like liked that tweet. I didn't even notice. And then you put out the corrected one, and then somebody said, "What are esports?" And I looked at the corrected one, and I was like, "What is this person talking about?"
What do you mean? What are esports? Everybody knows what an esports.
And then I looked at the original one and I was like, oh yeah, did not even catch that.
It's totally embarrassing. Yeah. And Twitter is like, don't you dare post any links. And I'm like, I'm posting more links because that first one was a fail. But yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about esports and how that connects to substance abuse. Because when we've had conversations before, you talked about the fact that you feel largely that not that esports caused your substance abuse, but that they kind of created the culmination of everything that you had to confront your substance abuse. So let's talk about that. Yeah.
I would love to. Yeah. One thing I would say is like, I like to try to be careful in my wording in that, like, I'm not blaming esports or the industry or the people.
That's my
and I know, and I'm not saying you were
okay.
implying that or anything like that, but I do feel that a large part of the reason it took me so long to get help and the reason it took me so long to acknowledge that I had a problem is because there are many others who also have problems in esports and are not willing yet to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And I think that the culture of the industry is very, very party heavy. And for instance, I remember many, many events where I would go to an event and be on the show floor hosting all day long and then going out to all of the parties afterwards. And it was always, it's just always a game of finding out where all the parties are, which ones of them have open bars, which ones of them you can get VIP access to, because some of them would be like, the party would be open to everyone, but they would have a VIP section or it's all one section, but if you're on the VIP list, you get free drinks, you know? And so it's always like a matter of like playing that game, figuring out where you can go to drink for free. And because everybody knows that like the real networking happens at the bars and the after parties.
Yep.
So, and then you go to the parties and then after that, it's which one can you go to afterwards. And it's just a whole night of like getting shit faced and like shouting at people and slinging business cards. And that's just kind of how that's how industry as I understood it. Yeah, that's what I did. That's what I looked around and saw everyone else doing. And it wasn't that anyone, like nobody told me like you have to drink or you have to get drunk. That was a personal decision, but it was also like kind of understood and not even, it was explicitly told to me. The real networking happens at the bars. Like, it's not even like it was like, that's implied. Like, that's what people legitimately told me. So I just thought it was like mandatory that I go to these parties.
Yep.
And I'm not going to go to a party and just stand there, you know.
Everybody's drinking. What are you, because nobody, because then you get the it's free. And then you get the pressure of like, well, people are drinking. If I'm not drinking, is that going to look weird? Or am I going to make other people feel bad? And it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I already had it in me to like want to drink. And so it was just kind of like a nice excuse and a nice way to be like, hey, I'm working, while also partying my face off. And I would look around and I would see everybody else behaving the same way that I was. And
Right.
like, I was making it to the show floor the next day and I wasn't puking. And so I thought I was okay. And like other people were doing the exact same thing, or at least
Right.
that's what I thought.
Right.
That's how it looked to me. And some people were, but looking back, I see that not everybody was. And that was just kind of my perception at the time.
Right.
So that just kind of kept me in denial for a very long time.
So you could just be like, everybody's doing this, so it's just not an issue at all.
Yeah, it wasn't even like there was no part of me that ever thought it was an issue. It wasn't like I was actively in denial. It wasn't like I thought I had a problem, but I could keep it under control. I just did not know that there was a problem, and I just thought I also knew I had like anxiety and depression, but I thought that those were like separate issues. Okay. I thought like, oh, there's no way this poisonous chemical could be contributing in any way to me feeling this way.
Of course not. Like, it makes you feel amazing. What are you talking about? Yeah.
That thought just like never once entered my brain. So I just,
yeah,
thought I was okay for a while.
Yeah. And did the cycle kind of perpetuate itself? Like you land a gig, right, because of somebody you met at a party, and then you're like, oh, well, so that works. So I gotta go drink again with these people because I want to hang out with them and I want to maybe get an opportunity here. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was never, exactly. It was never that like explicitly like met this person, they hired me, but it was kind of like, it was more like you'd meet someone and then later on you'd like really connect with them and kind of become friends with them, like bond with them at the bar. And then so that later on, like you were the first on their mind. Like, I remember when we drank together, we bonded, and it's a lot of it is kind of like a subconscious thing,
Yep.
But yes, exactly. Every event, it would just feels like the parties were so much fun, you know, and they felt like it just felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I just kind of didn't question it. And yeah.
So what made you be like, okay, maybe this is a problem? If everybody's doing it and everybody's having a great time, what made you finally be like, okay, yeah, maybe this is a problem?
Yeah. So finally in 2018, in October 2018.
That's pretty recent, right? 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's almost 3 years ago. So I spent a while. I spent the majority of my career. Like now it's exciting to me to look forward and think like, I'm becoming to the midway point where I'll have been working in esports and gaming sober for longer than I was working in it drunk.
Aww.
And that's a really exciting thought. Like when that comes up, of course, if I don't like relapse before then or anything like that. But so I mean, relatively recently in the grand scheme of things, because I got into esports and gaming like full time in 2013, pretty much. So it was like 5 years that I was drinking my face off. And yeah, but anyway, as I mentioned, I struggle with anxiety and depression, and I had never really been like actively suicidal in my life though, despite being like having, struggling, like formally diagnosed with anxiety, kind of self-diagnosed with depression. And then, in October 2018, I had just gotten out of a really serious relationship. And even though that was like for the best, it was also obviously really difficult. And I coped by drinking a lot. And
so this by yourself or just more parties and hangouts? And
primarily by myself. A little bit of both, little of both, but primarily by myself. And I mean, yeah, I did a lot of drinking by myself. That's kind of and again, that's kind of one of the things like how you're an alcoholic. And like, again, I was doing it and not even questioning, like, because at that point, toward the end of it there, it wasn't so much like, so like earlier in my life, it was a very subtle denial that I was in. Like I just wasn't even, it just didn't enter my mind that I had a problem. Then toward the end there, it was a much more active denial. It was, well, this is not normal behavior, but it's not a problem either. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then, so like I said, I was coming out of this breakup. And then I was in an odd time in my career in that I had just finished a season for Call of Duty, and then I'm freelance. So even though Call of Duty is kind of the main gig that I work each year, there is a competitive season. It runs roughly like January through like August of each year. So we had broken up in August. And then I had found out a couple months later that they were renewing me for the following year. So I had like several months where I was just like, I have no responsibility. I don't need to hustle. Like I know where my paychecks are coming from next year. Like I'm just depressed, drinking, like sometimes partying with friends, mostly just drinking by myself.
Yeah.
And then toward the very end of it, I started calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline because I wasn't necessarily, I was less, again, I said I had never been actively suicidal in my life. And that's why I had all these thoughts that were really concerning to me. Like I wasn't forming a plan, but it was, very uncomfortable. So, I've been calling the Lifeline quite a bit, actually. And then finally, on the morning of October 22nd, 2018, I called, and the person who answered, the volunteer on the other end, happened to be a man named Rick, who was a lifelong member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is, sorry,
take a second. This is really tough stuff. I'm talking about it like with a smile on my face, and we're super casual about it because this is the channel. But that does not mean it's not easy. It's not hard to talk about. Like I've talked about this for 4 years. I talk about my experience, and then I will go into talk about suicidal ideation, and suddenly I'm like a mess, and the community knows, and like it's not nobody's expecting you to talk about this like suicide, guys, right? Let's just go to the mall instead, right? Like who, nobody's expecting you to like put on a brave face and pretend this isn't tough to talk about.
Yeah, well, and it is. And then it's also, part of it is like tears of gratitude because I do, of course, have a lot of gratitude for the program of AA. Sorry, and I'm one of those easy criers.
Take a moment. Take a second. Take a moment. I can entertain the audience. So everybody, what have you been eating recently? And I hope, good. Tell me the best food you've had recently. Is it tacos? Everybody says tacos. Nobody said it yet, but I'm sure they're thinking it. You're allowed to be messy here. Please take care. I know this topic can be really hard for people. Self-care first. Yeah, absolutely. People are sending hugs. I have good samosas.
Ooh, samosas
We're
are
only
delicious.
accepting taco as an answer at this time, but you can come back when we're talking about samosas. Taco Bell I can't do Taco Bell for lunch. No, Taco Bell is where I draw the line. It's def tacos. Okay, I'm happy. So we're all in agreement. Great. Bacon, eggs, and croissant. Just wait. That is actually legit amazing. That is amazing. Yeah. King Ninja, I see your comment. Thank you so much for sharing. How you feeling, Jess? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. All right, definitely ready to talk. So,
okay.
So anyway, this is such an interesting thing. I like to kind of tell this part of the story is that, so I called the Suicide Prevention Lifeline that morning, and I'm speaking to Rick. I don't know if that's his real name, but he introduces himself as Rick, and we're chatting. I mentioned some of the things I'm going through. I didn't say a single word of like alcohol or my drinking habits or anything like that. I just mentioned, like recently went through a breakup, really depressed, suicidal thoughts, etc. And like, I guess he just knew. He was like, have you considered checking out an AA meeting? And I was like, honestly, no, I really haven't. And he was like, I think you should. And like, to this day, like I consider myself an atheist. I don't really believe in like, a God or a higher power really that much or anything, but that's the one thing that I'm like, that was spooky.
Yeah, that happened for a reason.
Yeah. So that's like the one thing in the world that I'm like, that was a sign from like the universe or whatever. So I got myself to a meeting that day and been sober ever since.
Oh my God. Wait, that is huge. You just took one moment in your life and you turned around everything about it in that moment. That's amazing.
It was, because it was what I needed. And the thing is, like, I have so many funny stories now looking back. Cause now, obviously I cry every time I talk about it, even though it was 3 years ago. I cry every time I talk about it. Like, I'm okay. I'm doing well now, and I'm glad and everything. And I have so many like stories that I can laugh about now. Like, there was nobody, my ex-fiance that, that was the breakup I mentioned, was the only person in my life that told me that I had a problem. And that was another reason why it was so easy for me to be in denial for so long was nobody in my life ever said anything about my drinking to me. And except he was the only person that was really urging me to like go to AA and get sober and like really, really strongly thought I should. And we had a lot of other problems at the time. Some that
it's easy to dismiss what he's saying, be like, oh, well, it's just, he's just bullshitting and everything sucks that he says.
Yeah. I lumped it in with all the other things because there were a lot of problems we had. There were a lot of things that he said to me that were very unkind and most of them were untrue as well. So at the time I was like, well, that's just another like lie that you're telling me. You're just trying to control me and stuff like that. And obviously now that was not the case at all, but but it was hard for me to see at the time. And so, like, okay, like here's just kind of a random funny story. So I have this friend that I've known since college, and we had gotten wasted together in college a little bit. We got wasted together a whole lot after college. And he was one person that like I really kind of leaned on and talked to a lot while I was going through the breakup and stuff. And I was talking to him about like, well, one of the reasons we broke up, was because he, thought I was an alcoholic, et cetera, et cetera. And my friend goes, he says, we've been drunk together hundreds of times, and that's, I can tell you're not an alcoholic. And I look back and I'm like, you just said like we drank together hundreds of times, like, and you just think that was normal behavior. Like you think that,
Yeah, yeah.
like,
You literally,
he will,
yeah,
yeah.
that's the key there. Yeah. It's like, yeah. I don't
like,
even have a good metaphor that would just make sense. Like, oh yeah. I play Stardew all the time, but I'm not like hardcore
like,
into Stardew. I'm not.
Right. Or it's like I've seen you do heroin.
Yeah.
So that's how I know you don't have a problem. And it's like, no, the things you're saying just
Right.
reinforce that I do have a problem.
Right.
Like it was nice of him to like try. He was on my side and he thought he was helping.
Well, he was
and again,
trying to be on your side because people think that you need to hear something to like get you back. But what you need to hear sometimes is somebody to be like, yo.
Yeah. Well, or even if he had said at the time, even if he had told me to my face that I think he truly did not think I had a problem, but if he thought I did, and he told me that, then he might have also thought that I would just deny it, or downplay it or whatever, because that's a classic like alcoholic addict behavior is to, deny, downplay, etc. And like, I think that he thought he was helping. He thought he was being on my side of the breakup, right. Like, yeah, of course you're not an alcoholic. And it just strikes me as so funny now that he said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the like the most ironic statement like of all time. Like,
right.
Yeah. I'm totally not, there's just so many metaphors, but yeah. Okay. All right. So, you hear the story, you hear that like it's a problem, and this stranger is what confronts you. And I wanted to go back to that because I wanted to emphasize you never ever know what you're going to say that's going to change somebody's life. Like there are so many times where I've felt like I'm not making a difference. I'm not doing anything. Like this is pointless. There's not enough, whatever, blank. And people then come by and say like, you talked about ADHD and it made me go and get a diagnosis because I realized like this was an issue or something like that. And like Rick completely turned your life around.
Yeah, he really did.
But what was it? And maybe you don't have the answer to this, but what was it about how Rick said it versus, if your friend did say it to you, like, why does it hit different? Do you know, like, do you have any idea why is it that, like, when Rick said it, you're like, you're right?
Well, I think because with my ex, I felt that he was just using it as like leverage against me. He was just saying, I felt he was trying to hurt me, and I felt that he had a bias against me, which he didn't, but that's how I felt. And I felt that this stranger doesn't know me, has no bias against me. And this stranger is volunteering at this suicide prevention hotline that you can call in. So clearly, if this stranger has a bias, it is to help me, and I think that was kind of it, is like this person who knows me really, really well tells me something. I'm not really going to believe it, but a stranger tells me something, I'm going to believe it, and that's not always like that cut and dry.
No. Like... But this person has, you feel like there's no agenda. There's like you said, your friend, you're like, he was on my side of the breakup. Like he was just trying to say, that you account for that. You're like, well, you're just trying to say stuff to make me feel better, but I need you to say that. So we're on the same page here. But
Yeah. And like none of my friends said anything. And I had my best friend actually told me afterwards that she knew I had a problem and also knew that I had to find my own way out, and knew that if she said something, then, I might listen, but I wouldn't, I don't know. she knows me very well. So I think that's kind of why she told me afterwards. She was like, I knew you were going to find she's a little bit psychic sometimes. So she was like, I knew you were going to find your way out, and I knew it was going to be soon, but, and I knew I couldn't say anything because you had to do it yourself.
Do you ever get, because this comes up a lot, so not with substance abuse in my case, but it comes up a lot with people who will come to me and be like, my friend will not go to therapy. I know they need therapy. They're having a really hard time with XYZ, but they will not go to therapy. And I know they have the means, and I've sent them all the resources to get it cheaper and whatever it might be. And the thing that comes up again and again is like, well, you just can't force them. If it's too much for you to take care of that person, because it has happened that like you become their therapist and they're like, I don't need a therapist, but then they come to you all the time and basically get free therapy, and you're like, I can't keep doing that. So you either get a therapist. So what do you ever wish that like your friends did tell you? Do you think you would have come to it sooner, or do you it had to happen the way it happened?
It had to happen the way it happened. And I think for one thing, I think addicts can get pretty good at kind of manipulating people, not necessarily willfully, but in terms of, I mean, yes, willfully sometimes, but also in terms of trying to fool people into thinking that we're not addicts and alcoholics. And I think that, that happens to varying degrees of success. So obviously, I do honestly think that other than my best friend and, my ex-fiance, I don't honestly think anybody else actually knew how bad my drinking was. Or so it's not even that there just was nothing to say. They just didn't they just didn't realize there was a problem, and which was a purposeful calculation on my part. I obviously would not want anyone to know. So, I would always downplay things and obfuscate things. And I think that if anyone had said anything, I mean, like, like I just said, like I'm going through this breakup. One thing he says is, well, you're an alcoholic. And I go, screw you,
Right.
And like, I think if anyone in my life had said I was an alcoholic, it's not that I would have like cut them off, but I probably would have been salty about it. And I probably would have distanced myself from them. And then the problem is not solved,
Right.
So it had to happen the way it happened.
It had to happen. And it had to be you who came there and who got to that place.
Yeah.
So you hear that? It's not your job. When people come to me and they're like, I am so stressed and tired because people, this person has been coming to me with all of their problems. And I'm like, it's not your job. And people feel like that's such a cruel thing to say to someone, that like, oh, I can't help you. But like, it is, you are not the person that you cannot help that person because they don't want help. And you are not the right person to help that person.
I love talking about this kind of thing because in addition to helping you obviously stop drinking, one reason that I really love the program of AA is because it helps with, like, first of all, when you are an alcoholic or an addict, that takes over so much of your life and it messes up so much of your life. And another part of it is, though, like AA just helps you untangle so many of those situations, even the ones that are like not caused by alcohol. And it just kind of helps you manage your own life a lot better. And there is a sister program to AA that is called Al-Anon. It's a little confusing. Because
I recently learned about it. It blew my brains, but sorry, go ahead. Tell everybody.
Oh no, that's so great. So it's a little confusing because obviously AA is Alcoholics Anonymous. And then Al-Anon is a sister program, but it is not, people think it's an abbreviation because it's obviously sounds like it. But Al-Anon is actually a separate program. It's a sister program. And it is for people who have loved ones in their lives who are alcoholics, regardless of if the alcoholics in their lives are still drinking or not. And one of the things that you really kind of learn in like Al-Anon is how you can't control other people and you are not responsible for other people. And one thing that addicts love to do is we love to blame other people for our own problems and for messes that we've created. And Al-Anon helps you, like, I hope someone out there watching right now, not necessarily that I hope any of you are alcoholics or have an alcoholic loved one or whatever, but like, I hope that there is someone out there who who has a loved one who is an alcoholic and does not know about this and is able to benefit from this. Because like you can't cause somebody to relapse. You can't cause somebody to drink, you know? And that's exactly what alcoholics love to do, is be like, I drink so much because of you. It's because of you, you know? And like, you can't accept that blame. And that's one thing that Al-Anon really teaches, is that like, that's not your responsibility and you cannot control them, just like they cannot control you, you know? And right now drinking is controlling them. And until it stops, you know, you can't do anything, kind of thing. Nope.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. I really,
Sorry,
really
I hit my headset cord again.
No, my God, it's fine. I do that all the time. I thank you so much for sharing. I think that's really, really, really important, because it takes a certain kind of person to also be with somebody, and I don't want to use the wrong term, not reinforce, but not encourage, but
Enable.
I guess enable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's continually let that happen.
And there's so many people that like, so like alcoholics love to like seek out, you know, enablers, obviously. And that's the thing, is like, oh, it's a lot of, there's a lot of like black and white in the life of an alcoholic or an addict. Cause it's either like, you know, you're enabling me or you're trying to get me to stop, you know, and in which case I'm going to cut you off, kind of thing. Like, not always that dramatic, but you know, it's obviously like, if I'm in a situation where like, I don't want to get help yet, and I'm still drinking, and I have friends who will go out and drink with me versus friends who go, you're kind of sloppy and you need help. Like, what do you think I want to hear? You know, it's the path of least resistance at the time is,
well, I feel like drinking, so I'm going to go hang out with the friends who want to drink with me. Sounds great. Like, buy a hater.
Yeah. And that's called enabling. And it's so hard, because you can accidentally be an enabler to somebody and like not even realize it, you know, like for instance, by like tolerating that behavior, or like by allowing an alcoholic to like treat you poorly and, you know, blame their alcoholism on you, like you're just kind of enabling that behavior, because you're just like accepting it, you know. And again, not that you have to like take that responsibility, but like, it's just, you know.
No, but I think what you're trying to say is, if I may, is that it's complicated. It's just heckin' complicated. You're not, I don't think anybody's going out there and being like, oh, this person's an alcoholic, I'm going to get them to drink themselves to death. Like, I don't want to imply at all that that's what's happening, but we seek out relationships that, like you said, are the passive least resistance. So if we have somebody who helps us kind of make things feel easier, even if they're not easy, right? Being an alcoholic is not easy, but remaining, continuing a behavior that is not good for you, that is the only behavior that you know, that feels easy, even though it's not. Yeah.
No, that's so true. It feels, because I mean, it's easier to do nothing than to do something.
Right.
And like, it takes action. Like, it's not like getting sober is not just a like passive, like, all right, well, I stopped drinking, you know, like, there's so much more that goes into it. So it's like, there's a reason that there are 12 steps. Like, it truly is. It's a program of action, you know, and like, there's a reason for that. Because the lack of action is what you're currently doing, you know. Not drinking is just continuing the same pattern. And
I might not have, you know, the experience with substance abuse specifically, but I feel like a lot of this does relate to people who are in codependent relationships, who are in just not dealing with their depression or bipolar or whatever else it might be, and just kind of like anybody who is just saying, this is how it is, and I'm just going to brush anything that's uncomfortable to the side. Like, I feel like this is incredibly relatable, whether or not you add a substance abuse problem on top of that or anything. So I have to ask, because a few people have brought it up in chat, is alcoholic and addict, are they offensive terms? And if maybe for you they're not, and if I would love to just talk about that.
Yeah, it's not like calling a white person a cracker, you know, I guess, to use like that.
Well, and you're not a monolith. Like, I'm not being like, tell us what all alcoholics think. Like, I don't want to imply that either, right? Like, but in your experience.
Right. In my experience, and okay, like, I have a different, like, no, alcoholic or addict is not offensive. It is what I am. I have another point that I like to clarify, because people don't have, unless you've experienced addiction or alcoholism, it's kind of hard to grasp some certain things. And one thing is that it's like a lifelong thing. And I think what we see as the classic picture of like overcoming addiction is, well, you were addicted to the substance and now you're no longer using the substance. Ipso facto, you're no longer addicted. And like, sure, you're not actively physically addicted to that substance because you're not using that substance, But the line of thought in a lot of recovery programs, including AA, is that it is a lifelong disease. We like to use the word disease because it truly is. I mean, there's a strong genetic component. There are plenty of studies and research to suggest that those of us who are alcoholics were alcoholics from the minute we were born, you know, and that it was just a matter of time. It's like a ticking time bomb is kind of how we think of it. And I'm sure other people will think differently. And I'm sure there's somebody who is going to be like offended by it. But I think at least in like, again, the way that I have experienced my recovery program and the way a lot of other people I know have as well, it's kind of something you have to own. You can't really like hem and haw and be like, oh yeah, well, alcohol and I don't mix well, so I shouldn't, you know, or whatever. It's kind of all or nothing.
It's like call it what it is kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's tough because the thing is, it's like, I think if the people, I think people who tell me like, oh, I had a problem with alcohol and I got it under control and they are social drinkers or whatever, if that's true, I don't think they actually had a problem to begin with. I think maybe they were going through a tough time and the volume of alcohol that they consumed increased. But truly, if you are an alcoholic or if you are an addict, it really is all or nothing.
Yeah.
The minute you find yourself like, and I love seeing, there are certain TV shows and there's certain media that really nails the whole addiction thing and others that get it so wrong. And the American version of the show, oh fuck, I just forgot the name of it. But
oh no,
Shameless.
Okay,
the American version of the show, Shameless. I've never watched the British version, but the American version of the show fucking nails it. I'm so sorry. I think I dropped the F bomb.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
2 F bombs before it's not PG-13 anymore. So I'm not
I
gonna say that
dropped
anymore.
one before too, so we're screwed. It's fine.
The American version of the show, at least, it just nails it because there's one character. I won't spoil it just in case anyone's interested in watching it, but a lot of the characters on the show experience alcoholism, addiction, and other problems. And one of the characters later on becomes an alcoholic. He starts exhibiting very alcoholic behavior and he starts putting rules on his drinking. He sees that he has a problem. He gets into some fights. He gets, kicked out of school. He has a few consequences to his behaviors. So he goes, all right, I'm going to start putting rules on my drinking. And for every drink that I have, I'm going to consume 8 ounces of water. And I'm going to have no more than 2 drinks within a 1 hour period. And this, that. And it was all these like constraints. And like, if you have to try that hard to control your drinking, you're not controlling your drinking. Your drinking is controlling you.
Oh, I want to emphasize this again, because I see chat going and it's going really quickly. Fam, the best part about the show is that you do not have to agree with Jess, but Jess's truth is her truth. And she is very valued, and her how she's describing her life and how she feels about these things is very valid. Like, there's no invalidating it. I just want to make that really, really clear. Like, you might not see it the way Jess sees it, but Jess is telling her story. So this is her story. Like, nobody else gets to decide how she can talk about herself or what words she can use or can't use when describing herself. So I just, yes, it is hers and only her. And I just want to make that super clear. I don't want anybody being like, yeah, but you're saying there's no wrong thing. She's talking about her story. She gets to tell you how she wants to talk about it.
Yeah. And that's one thing also I think that I would like to also say about like my own recovery and about recovery in general and recovery programs is they are not one size fits all.
Right.
Like I said, I use the program of AA, but I don't think it's for everyone. I think though that I will say that in my experience, the people that I know who have had the hesitations and the resistances toward AA are kind of similar that I was because of the fact that there's kind of an elephant in the room. Like they talk about God a lot and the whole program is dependent upon you finding a higher power. But you'll find that different meetings have really different kind of flavors.
Okay.
There are some who really hit the God thing really heavy and hard. And there are others who are really like atheists and they barely even use the word, or they use it only because it's like in the literature. It does not say you have to believe in a Christian God to be a member of AA. In fact, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. You can be drunk at an AA meeting. You can show up wasted. You can drink at an AA meeting. I've seen it happen. Nobody's going to kick you out. You just have to have the desire to stop, So
that's beautiful.
I don't remember why I went on that tangent. That was
I don't remember either, but it's a really nice tangent. I like it.
But I just want people to keep an open mind, because like I said before, like I'm kind of an atheist. I don't really believe in, like, at least I don't believe in a Christian God.
Same. Yeah.
And so that was, I think that was kind of another sticking point for me, was I was like, well, if I get sober, like I have to do it on my own, because I'm, I can't really gel with the whole like God thing or whatever. But like, I was open-minded about it. And like, it has been so rewarding to do that.
I can feel that would also be another way to push it aside, to be like, I have a problem, but this isn't the solution for me. So I guess it's not the solution. Okay, no problem. Okay. I just continue doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like those little times that I had the inklings of like, maybe you do have a problem. Maybe you should go to AA or whatever. I was like, that's not for me. That's not the program for me. I'm not going to, but like, honestly, it has such a like track record of success,
it does. I mean, and okay, here's the thing. I feel, again, I cannot relate to this in terms of substance abuse, but I can relate to this in terms of depression, anxiety, and everything that I live with. And I feel very similarly when people are like, therapy isn't for me. And I'm like, I understand you probably met a really shitty therapist. Therapy wasn't accessible to you when you needed it the most. You came to somebody for help and not the wrong person picked up the phone. Like I just don't want you to give up, because this could be the key to unlocking the rest of your life. Yes. And I just don't, if it's not for you, that is for you to decide. And I'm not here to tell you have to do it. But I want you to make sure that you don't throw out the key to something that could potentially be saving your life.
Yeah. Like, be open-minded at least, because like you're telling me it hasn't worked. You're telling me it's not going to work. You're telling me it's for you, but you haven't tried. Yes. How can you definitively make that judgment until you've actually tried it?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it's just making excuses. It's just because it's so like, because here's the thing is like, bettering yourself in any way, any type of growth is inherently uncomfortable. It's so much more comfortable to stay in your lane and to keep doing what you've been doing, even if it like actively hurts at the time. It's just comfortable because it's what you know, and it's hard to grow and change. Yep. So when you step out of your comfort zone and it kind of hurts, it's so much easier to be like, I don't like that. That's not for me.
Okay, I guess I don't have a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier to make excuses, deny, come up with reasons why you can't or won't do this thing than it is to actually do it.
Yeah. And then I add to that, I think, things like substance abuse, depression, the whole point is to keep you where you are, right? Like, at least with depression, like, you have your brain telling you you're a piece of shit and you don't deserve to live and all these awful things. So anything that deviates from that, your brain's like, that's tricky. That's not right. Yeah. That can't be. Yeah. Because again, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like, your comfort is in these really terrible things, but that is your comfort. So your brain is going to go, this is our status quo. Anything that is against that, it's not this is not jiving with me. So I feel substance abuse is similar in that way, because I'm just, drinking makes sense to me. This is why would I do something that isn't this if this is working?
Right. Or again, if you feel like you haven't experienced consequences, or you feel like you don't have a problem, why would you change? First of all. And then second of all, it's really difficult to, like, with alcohol in particular, there's a reason that the whole like branding of AA is one day at a time, because it's so difficult to look ahead of your life and imagine a life without alcohol. Yes. Or for instance, like, maybe to relate it to like a depression kind of, analogy, maybe if you look at your life and you think like, oh, I'll have to go to therapy every week, and I'll have to maybe take medication, or I'll have to exercise.
That
I'll
sounds
have
miserable.
To do all these things. Yeah. And it's a lifestyle adaptation. It's not just a quick bandage. It's, you have to do all these things to get better, and then you have to keep doing them because they make you better.
That's
so you
gotta keep
hard. Doing them.
Yeah, and you're so tired. You're so tired from fighting all of these demons that you're like, I don't want to work on crap. I don't want to have to go in somewhere and then have somebody tell me that my childhood messed me up. I know that. I don't need you to tell me that. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh yeah, God, that's so uncomfortable. And then to look, or just even like look ahead of your life and think like I'm never drinking again. That sounds like such an insurmountable task, because instantly your brain comes up with so many, like
Yep.
your brain instantly tries to sabotage you, because
Yeah.
it comes up with all these excuses, more excuses.
Mm.
Oh, well, you have this wedding coming up, and weddings are no fun sober. What are you going to do? Everyone else is going to be drinking, and you're just going to like have a tap water like an idiot, you know, or like, oh, this is coming up. Oh, the holidays are coming up, and there's always going to be some spiced wine. There's always an excuse, and it's always easy to think ahead to all the situations that you want to drink in and how to navigate those without alcohol. But you know what? You don't have to do that. Like
You
just
don't
have to
have
wake
to
up.
do that. Yep.
Right. You just have to wake up in the morning and say, all right, I'm not drinking today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. No, the one step at a time is it's for everything. It's not just that.
Yeah.
A sign belt made a really good comment, and I want to bring it up. I mean, in people that are already not in an easy position, I see the logic of thinking they can't afford to do any damage further, saying it's not for me, right? So saying therapy isn't for me, Alcohol Anonymous, because everything I've tried so far hasn't worked, and maybe in fact it's gotten worse. So I don't want to risk it feeling even worse than I feel right now, because I feel pretty goddamn terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think the other thing for me, I was just talking to a friend. I had lunch with a friend today who I didn't even know. She is an addict apparently. And like she like, it's so funny because she was an addict, and she was actively using her substance while we were friends, and I was actively drinking, and like neither of us, and we were both like, our lives were a mess, each independent of each other, and neither of us like connected it to. And I didn't even know she was having substance abuse issues either. And then when we had lunch today, she told me, and you know, we like chatted and kind of connected over that. And oh my gosh, I don't even remember where I was going with this, but I had something so poignant I was going to say.
Oh, I'm
It'll
so
come
sorry.
back to me.
Was it to the point that it's not for me because it's Oh, sorry. You got it.
I remembered what it was.
Yeah.
It's just one thing that she and I talked about was it's also the fact that you don't like, alcohol and substances can mess up your thinking. So it's not even necessarily like that logical of like, oh, well, everything else I've tried hasn't worked. I don't want to, you know, screw up anything else in my life. So why bother trying? It's even just that your brain is just lying to you, and you make bad decisions without even realizing that they're bad decisions. And you don't even bother to step back and consider, like, am I living the way I want to be living? Or like, you don't even like, you just make terrible decisions and you don't even realize. And it's almost like you have no control over your like actions or your thoughts. And you do, but it's like,
you don't know that.
I don't know. It's insane.
No, it is. It's absolutely wild. It's mind-boggling. Yeah, no, because Leshy said it really well in chat, is that like with all these things, like our evolution has come up with some pretty amazing stuff, but our tendency towards self-destruction is like blows my mind every time, because I'll see somebody going down the rabbit hole and being like, man, as humanity for, you know, the 2000 years we've been doing this, plus like we've been figuring it out and crawling out, and we've been figuring out how to make this stuff better. And so maybe, but it's so hard when you're in it to believe that there is a life without it, whatever it is, whether it's substance or depression or whatever. Like, you seeing a life without the thing that you're living doesn't make sense to you because you've never done that.
Right. Well, and you're caught up in these patterns, and you're so used to it. Like, let's say you're like, oh, but every Tuesday we go to, you know, bar trivia or whatever. What am I going to do on Tuesday nights from here on out? You know, like, until you actually live it, it's hard to imagine. But again, it's just like one day at a time. You only have to do like, because here's the other thing is like, even outside of like an addiction or mental health perspective, like all we have is today. You literally don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could get hit by a bus. You could win $1 million. Like, you don't know. All we have is today. So you really just have to kind of live for today.
Yeah. No, that's all you know. And I like the people who practice mindfulness have figured this out too, and they keep telling us like, hey, mindfulness is pretty cool, and you're like, no, I want to worry about the future and the past at the same time and stress out and make my jaw clench so hard. Please leave me alone.
Bad. Yeah, I know that exact, like, I don't know why this made me think of that, but like, I was talking to my therapist one day, and I was like describing like, so, because like I said, I was like formally diagnosed with anxiety, and I in like 2014. And so just in the last 6 months, I was talking to my therapist, and I, have been describing like kind of what my childhood was like, what it felt for me and all that stuff. And she was like, I actually don't think you were anxious as a child. I think you were depressed and didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And that like blew my mind, because I looked back and I was like, oh my God, she's right. Like, and it's so weird that you can come out of something and then look back and be like, wow, I was depressed as a child.
Yeah.
Like,
that totally tracks. Yeah. That was, it took me, I was 29 before a doctor was like, do you think you had ADHD growing up? And I was like, okay, whatever. She's like, just go online and take this test. And I take the test and I was like, oh, is that what that, I turned to my husband, who I've been with for 13 years. And I was like, so these are all symptoms. And he's like, oh, weren't those just like Marie quirks? I was like, I know we've both accepted that this is just like life with me. Like, haha, she forgot her keys in the fridge again. Like, people do that, but like not weekly. That's a problem.
I love that. I like the way you put that, because that's something that also like I like in my active drinking days, I thought that, drinking a lot was a personality trait kind of thing, like I did like it's more than like occurring to me that like besides not occurring to me that I had a problem, I even took it further. Like I thought that like, liking IPAs was like I thought like beer was a hobby.
Yeah, for sure. And party girls, that's a thing. Like, oh yeah, she's a party girl. Yeah,
right. Like, oh, she could really hold her liquor. Like, that's a good thing to say about.
That's a quality.
Like yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a personality trait. It's not. The movies and such that are like selling you that lie, like they just want to make money by keeping you believing this, because the alcohol companies profit and everybody fucking wins.
Yeah.
And it's so insane to me. I didn't know in Europe, or this might not be true. I don't want to lie to you guys. In certain countries, at least in Europe, you cannot advertise for alcohol. Like you don't just have TV commercials for like, grab a Bud Light, vodka. Don't you want some?
Yeah.
Like, because people know about alcohol. Like they know it. They love it. They're gonna buy
in the United States, we figured out that people just can't actively drink on screen, because that apparently, like in all the commercials, they like hand a beer over, and then you're like, and then they lived happily ever after, right? Like, I know they're drinking. I know what you're insinuating. Not having them take a sip does not make me like, oh.
I had no idea. Is that true? I never thought about that.
No, that's a legal thing. You could check it out. Yeah, in commercials, especially on certain channels, like, like certain.
That's so fucking weird. That it's like, again, I'm sorry I dropped the F-bomb, but that's so weird
late.
that it's like, we can like, it is too late. You'll have to like put a censor bleep in the VOD or something. I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. I said I did it too. Like, you're fine.
How insane is that like in this country, you can advertise for alcohol, you can advertise for prescription medicines just on TV. Yeah. But like you can't actually show someone like drinking an alcoholic beverage. Like that's where we draw the line.
That's the line. Is because if they don't drink it, they must have not drank it. Like my brain cannot connect the two dots. If somebody got handed beer, they just went, no, thank you, and put it back. Duh.
That's so weird.
Yeah. But I'm so sorry. We're a little bit out of schedule, but do you mind answering a few questions? Would you be comfortable doing it? It's going to be moderated and stuff.
I got nowhere to be after this.
Okay. Hold on.
No, I'm going out partying. No.
Okay. Except that party that I'm going to, but like, that's not a problem. Yeah. So to ask a question, that's how you ask a question, fam. Please ask your questions. I am going to cap it at about 5, just because like, this is a lot of emotional work for Jess, and I really appreciate you, but it is a lot of work. So please ask your questions and get them in quick. But yeah. I love how it goes when you say you don't drink at a party. Yeah, like
that John Mulaney skit.
Yeah.
He's like, we have an old turnip. Would you like that?
Yeah.
Would that be good for you?
Yeah.
My girlfriend's old Nuva ring. Would you like that? Would that be good for you?
There's a Jim Gaffigan sketch that's like that. That's also like, did alcohol do something to you? Did it hurt you? Did it kill your mother? Is it like there was he was talking about the fact that how nothing compares to that. Like nobody else goes like, did mayonnaise hurt you? Do you have problems with mayonnaise? Like you could just say, no, I don't like mayonnaise, and everybody moves on with their lives. But you say, I don't like alcohol, and people are like, oh, Tell
Yes,
me.
yes. You're so right. I didn't even like realize
No, that's
that,
a Jim
but you're
Gaffigan.
like,
Give him all the credit. That's not
yeah,
even
I'm sorry.
me.
Jim Gaffigan is so
Yeah.
right. Like I never even thought about that, but I've totally experienced that. And it's so funny because like, so I don't mind talking about it, obviously, you know, and in fact, like AA kind of encourages like openness because again, it's kind of that like idea of like you never know who might be listening, you never know like, who you might help.
Right. You could be
But
helping
at
someone.
the same time, people get so like easily personal about it. Like if I say like I don't drink, they're like I had like I was meeting my fiance's grandfather for the first time, like several years ago at this point, and he's like he's like, oh, I have this beautiful bottle of, it was like around Christmas time, or I think it was on Christmas Day. He's like, I have this beautiful bottle of wine, like let's crack it open, I'll pour you a glass. I was like, oh no, thank you. And he's like, no, I really insist you have a glass. I was like, oh no, I appreciate it, but I actually don't drink. He's like, oh, but you know, you have to at least you have to at least sip it, you have to at least try it.
I'm sorry.
And I was like, I'm
funny.
actually an alcoholic in recovery, so that's why I don't drink.
Yeah, now you've made me tell you, so now it's awkward. Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
And it's like, why is no thank you not an option? You know, like no disrespect to him because he's not the only one. It's a very, very common response. Or a like, oh, I don't drink. Oh, why? It's like, damn, we just met, Karen, but all right, let's go there.
No, the Jim Gaffigan sketch ends with him being like, I just remembered, he's like, is it okay if I have mayonnaise in front of you? That's what it was.
That's exactly right. Oh.
No, but it's true. So my current partner never had an alcohol problem or anything. Like he just doesn't drink. Like he'll have a beer, but like when we go out, he doesn't need to have wine with his dinner or anything like that, you know? And so and that came up a lot with my Russian family before I stopped communication with them. And I remember literally I was driving my step grandpa in the car and he's like, so what do you do since you both don't drink? He's like, so you don't drink, he doesn't, what do you do? And I was like, so many things. Do you want me to list them all?
We just spend most of our time fornicating. I don't know.
Yeah, like, I mean, honestly, I was 18 at the time. We probably did, you know? Like, what do you want me to tell you? Right? Like, we just sit and stare each other's eyes.
Yeah.
For like hours.
You literally can't think of anything else to do. Like that is the pinnacle of entertainment.
That is it. That's it. Watch paint dry. Yeah. No, go around. Literally, Eddie. He was like, so what do you do? He was so, but I think he had issues with alcoholism. So like, that's not funny, but, and that's where that question came from. But because it's a Russian, it's like a whole thing with culture and like, it's part of how you live. Like, how could you take that away? Right. But.
And even just like as an alcoholic, it's just so hard to like, cause okay, you know, cause in like when I was drinking, my favorite activity was drinking and anything, you know, drinking and going
Netflix
to the movies,
and wine.
drinking and literally anything paired with drinking. And so I was so worried that like, I wasn't going to have any hobbies. And I thought that like, I did think that drinking, like I thought people that didn't drink, I'm like, oh, they must be so bored. They must be so boring. Like what do they do?
Yeah.
And like now, like, obviously drinking is the last thing I want to do, but like I've discovered so many more hobbies. I've rediscovered old hobbies. And I've even like, I remember one time I was like at a friend's house and things were wrapping up and everybody else there was they weren't drinking heavily, but everybody else there was having a couple glasses of wine and I was having my carbonated water. I don't know why I said it like that. My seltzer water. I'm a weird
Your carbonated water.
my carbonated beverage.
My Perrier.
My brain decided to sabotage me at that moment. So I'm leaving for the night and you know, my friend who was hosting like hugs me and she was like, I'm so glad you were here. You're always so much fun. And like, that was the first time I'd really like heard that since I stopped drinking. And I was like, that just like made me so happy. The fact that like, I thought I was going to be so boring. I thought people that didn't drink were boring. I thought I was going to be boring. And then I was like, she thinks I'm so fun and I'm the only one that wasn't drinking. Like,
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's such a good feeling. Not to open this can of worms, but it also freaks the crap out of me when I see all those like memes about like moms who drink, like, if you see this, get me wine, like wine and my kids. And I'm always like, hun, I don't know you, but if this is what you're, if hanging out with your children makes you drink,
I know.
Should look into that.
Yeah.
Maybe I get it's funny, but like,
maybe you need some help though.
Like, but also that worries me. Like, why are you drinking in front of your children? Something's going on. Yeah. No, that whole like culture. There's like a whole mom wine culture that I'm like, Anyway, all right. King Ninja asked, "What's the greatest thing you've ever done since going sober?"
Ooh, that is an interesting question. I think, okay, there isn't any one thing that is standing out. There isn't any one thing that I think like, oh, couldn't have done that in my drinking days, but instead it's kind of a whole series of things, and it's a whole like it's really sort of about, I think, the consequences of not drinking rather than, and I mean like the good consequences, because consequences don't have to be bad. They're not inherently a bad thing. They're just kind of like a resulting set of circumstances from a decision that you make. And I would say there's like a lot of things that are just better.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that were, I think I would look at and I would go, that would be really difficult to do without drinking. And then I did it. And there's every first that I've done has been, here's how I answer your question. Every like first thing without drinking has been so phenomenal. Like the first wedding I went to without drinking was so terrifying at first. Like I thought I was just going to be like miserable, bored, tired, like how am I going to dance? And like I danced, I worked up a sweat, I had so much fun. And I was only like 2 months sober, I think, at the time that I went because it was New Year's Eve and I had gotten sober on October 22nd. So I was just over 2 months sober. And I went to I went to like a Christmas party sober for the first time. Just like every first sober has been phenomenal.
Do you feel, and this is me, I usually ask open-ended questions, so this is me a little bit putting words in your mouth. Do you feel like the experiences were deeper because you were able to, like, you were there more presently instead of like in alcohol world? Like, I feel like it's a separate,
absolutely. Because like
Are the dogs okay?
Yes.
Do you need to go break them up? Like, because you're so casual, you're like, yeah. I'm like, the dogs might be dying. I don't know.
They're small dogs, so they have a complex. So they
just
bark
a lot of anxiety.
The fiance just got home, so they're really excited about that. But yes, absolutely, because like first of all, I remember every meaningful event, and like before it almost felt like, it felt like, how will I celebrate without alcohol, or how will I mark special occasions, kind of thing. And now like those special occasions are a lot more special, again, because like I'm actually there. I am going to remember all of it. I'm not going to behave in a manner that embarrasses myself or anyone else. And above all else, also, it's not about when you're an alcoholic, it's kind of always about like, where's the next drink coming from? Like you take your first drink. They say, I think there's a saying that's like, you take the first drink and then the second drink takes you, or something like that.
Okay.
Because like you take the first drink and then it's always about, where's the next one coming from? I have to get drunk, or I have to get another one, have to get another one. So as soon as you start drinking, it's like a quest. It's like a mission, and it's just all about the alcohol and nothing else matters. And now it's, it's a special happy occasion. So it's all about this thing that we're doing right now, right here, instead of how can I get more drunk?
Now it's just a different serotonin quest. It's like, hey, I want to stay happy. I guess I'll go work out or something.
Oh, and like relationships are so much more meaningful when you're not just like, because you really, first of all, really quickly figure out who is just your party friends, who is just still all about that drinking, versus who actually wants to like have a conversation with you.
And know you. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, because first of all, since it's not about the alcohol, and then second of all, you see who your true friends are, who are willing to be like, hey, I know we always used to do happy hour and that was our thing, but instead, why don't we start doing ice cream hour or taco hour, or we'll meet at a cafe, because they know like, okay, well, like, even though like I am okay going to a bar, I'm not going to like, instantly relapse when I see other people drinking or whatever. Still, it's kind of like, well, I'm just going to drink a soda and like, or we could go somewhere that we can both enjoy things. Like my friends who are so considerate are very wonderful,
Aw, I love that. What that always blows my mind. I mean, it's not like vegetarianism where like literally there isn't anything on the menu if there's not vegetarian options. Like not drinking alcohol, there are other options on the menu all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many fun mocktails that you can
Oh yeah, you still get to have all the fun of all the virgin daiquiris and all the stupid sugary crap you shouldn't be drinking anyway. Yeah. Okay. Next question. How did you get into esports, and what is your favorite game as a kid and teen?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so how I got into esports. So, I don't know. Okay, I was already working in like gaming, and then I kind of segued to esports. So I was working for Curse as a host. I was hosting their kind of daily video content, and while I was working there, I wanted to segue from gaming content that was kind of pre-recorded and edited into live events and like esports, like competitive gaming stuff. So I started a series on Dota 2 for Curse's YouTube channel. Since they kind of gave me a little bit of freedom to be like, here's the kind of content that we want, and then past that, make good content.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, can I make Dota content? And they were like, as long as it's good. So I was like, okay. So I tried to make good Dota content, and I actually got picked up by for a few Dota events, just kind of like freelance. But then it got to the point where like Curse was like, well, you have like a full-time job here, so you can't just kind of like, F off and like start doing all these freelance events. You kind of like, it's just really not feasible. So I was like, all right, then I quit. So I did have the backing of an agency. I had submitted myself to be represented by Character Select Agency. So I had like a couple like offers of freelance work, and I had an agency, and I was like, all right, I'm jumping off this diving board and going into freelance esports and all that good stuff. And then I forgot what the second question was. Oh, my favorite game as a teen kid.
Yeah,
I see that. Okay. I've always been a big fan of Pokemon. I think though, like my favorite game ever as a kid, I really, really liked the N64. That console had like a huge impact on me. So I'm gonna name a few games.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Super Mario 64 will always hold a special place in my heart. It was a fantastic game, and I have such fond memories of playing that game with my older sister before she stopped playing games. And like GoldenEye obviously was a classic for that console. Yoshi's Story is such an amazing game. Like that, so good. Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, phenomenal. And then what else? There was another one for the N64 that I was like,
Star Fox?
No, I actually didn't play Star Fox. And then weirdly, I didn't really play, like I had a copy of Ocarina of Time, but like didn't really play it actually. So I was not really a huge like Zelda.
Did you get into Zelda since then, or still not your thing?
I have dabbled, but it's still weirdly not really my thing. I feel like everyone loves Zelda, and like I've tried so hard.
I want to like it.
Yeah. I want to like it so badly, but like Breath of the Wild was just not my jam. So I tried the Zelda. I keep an open mind, but it's not really my.
I tried the Zelda. I kept an open mind. That's like cool. I feel like if Breath of the Wild isn't your thing, Zelda's not your thing, and that's okay.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And I would got other stuff going on. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As a teen, my favorite game was probably TF2. I would say Team Fortress 2. And and then the end. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That was the question.
Okay. I promise we'll let you go very soon. King Ninja's second question is, where do you see yourself in the future? Which I feel like is a really good.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that I don't know, because a lot of stuff that I've done in my life has been kind of by accident. I have done a decent amount, I would say, of kind of failing up, as they say. Not like I don't necessarily have this like, oh, well, I did this and then that led to that and then that led to that kind of flow in my mind. But there are a lot of things that were more kind of like happy accidents. And like I have more like, I would say I have more sort of general, loosely formed goals for myself rather than specifics. Like some people are like, I want to specifically do this. And like I always knew I wanted to do like work in gaming and esports and be a host. But like I don't really have specific, I guess, kind of 5-year goals or 5-year plans or whatever past that. Like I just want to be happy. I think I would love to be like, I see myself probably still making some sort of content. I see myself probably still hosting, but like the other thing is, even though like it's in some ways I'm kind of steering the ship that is my life, but in other ways, really like the wind and the seas are steering it, like I've got a little bit of control, but there are a lot of other things that like I have no control over. And I guess like as an example, like I mentioned how I work so much for the Call of Duty League, but even that I'm freelance, and like they could drop me at any time, and they have done so, and they have brought me back. So like because I was with them for 2 years, again, like on a freelance basis, but basically being handed a contract for the entire season, which is basically like a full-time salary for a year. And that, and then I had another contract the next year. And then the third year, they just didn't bring me back. No reason, got ghosted. And then the fourth year, which just wrapped up, they did bring me back, which I was really surprised by. So I just kind of try to like live my life with an open mind and think like, well, I don't know, I'll do what I want, but I don't really have like specific goals.
I love that, because that's kind of how I am, where I'm like, I know I should set goals, but I can only like set them honestly like a year ahead. Like I'm like, I kind of know I'll do this in the next year, but afterwards I don't know where stuff's gonna go.
Well, and I like to really I like to kind of really look at my life and see like what's working and what's not, and then maybe kind of change the stuff that's not working and continue to do more of the stuff that is working. So, like,
exactly.
Very often if I'm like trying something, like maybe I'm like with my stream, if I'm like trying a new game or a new something and I see it's like not really working, when I go back to like other things in my life that like I don't know, I just kind of look at my life and I'm like, all right, look at all these things that are working and all these things that aren't working. Like, why don't I just do more of the stuff that is working? It kind of doesn't really matter like what I want. It really just matters like what I'm good at and what's successful. I mean, that's not really true, but like path of least resistance, like if there's something that I want to do and I'm just horrible at it, and then there's all this other stuff that I'm a lot better at, and
why not focus on the other stuff?
Why not do that stuff? It's so much easier. But, that's just how
as long as you're enjoying it. As long as it's not like, I'm really good at digging graves, I should keep doing, like.
But and also like that's just my life. I think that if you guys like do what you love, even if you're horrible at it, do it if you want to. I'm lazy. I have no energy to do stuff that I'm bad at and that I don't want to do. But if you want to do something that you're bad at, please do it.
All right, 2 more questions, but I closed the queue, fam. So that's it. Hold on. One of them is in the queue. Leshy asks, Jess, have you met people with sugar addictions?
That's a great question. I don't think I have met people with sugar addictions, but I would say that sugar is a little bit different as far as it's the way it is addictive in terms of like, I believe I've heard evidence to suggest that sugar does have like a physically addictive component. So like, there are different ways to get addicted to something. You can be psychologically dependent on anything. Like there is such thing as a gambling addiction. Right. You're obviously not going to be intravenously using gambling. You're not injecting gambling into your veins. You're not physically addicted to gambling, but you have a psychological dependence on it. And you can form a psychological dependence on anything. That said, alcohol has a very strong ability to make you physically dependent on it. And sugar has some of that as well. However, it's a little bit harder to define a sugar addiction because while sure, there are negative health consequences, it's so much easier and faster to have negative health consequences from like long-term or even short-term alcohol abuse. Like you eat too much sugar, like it might get some cavities, you might get fat, right? But like it's not as dangerous. And so I don't know if I have. And yeah, exactly. Here's something else I have to point out. Because here's another fact about alcohol. I know so much about like alcohol and alcoholism and stuff like that is like, some things are a little surprising to some people. So alcohol is one of the only substances that if you are physically addicted to a certain point, going cold turkey can actually kill you. So that is one reason why ambulances will always have alcohol on them and like emergency rooms and such. And that is another reason why during the start of the pandemic, when a lot of non-essential businesses were closing down, liquor stores were deemed essential. And that is not just because the alcohol business wants to make money or whatever. That is because if you are truly an alcoholic, and like if you're truly an alcoholic to the point where you are that physically dependent, you're probably buying your alcohol every day on a per day basis because you know that whatever you buy, you're going to drink. So closing a liquor store and not being able to get that alcohol means a lot of people would have died from just like alcohol withdrawal.
Holy guacamole. Well, I've learned that. That's
so like you actually from like heroin withdrawal, you actually will not die from just that. Like you'll go through hell, but you can't actually die. Like you're puking, you're whatever, but you're not actually going to die from the withdrawal itself. Alcohol is one of the only substances that you can die from the withdrawals themselves.
Wow. I know that there's certain substances, certain addicted, what kills you is taking it again after you've been off of it for a while, like because it's such a shock to your body and you like think you can do the old dose, but you can't anymore because you've withdrawn from. Yeah, so I do know that, but I did know that about alcohol. So wow.
Yeah, and I will also, so Comfortable Stranger in chat pointed that out, which is something that I already knew and I always love to preach about, and I hadn't thought to say that. So thank you, Comfortable Stranger, for I believe you when you say things, and that's why I specifically wanted to bring it up in case nobody else was listening to you, chat.
Okay, well then we're gonna answer Comfortable Stranger's question. We're gonna call it a night. But do you like Pokemon and MOBAs? Have you tried Pokemon Unite?
I have not yet. I've heard great things. I've heard that Zapdos is very, very difficult to beat but I haven't tried it yet. I'm too addicted to Hades and Slay the Spire on my Switch right now. But I do.
I've heard such good things about Hades and that it's like incredibly difficult, but also like amazing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very, very good.
Okay.
Big vouch.
Oh my god.
Everybody in the game is bangable.
Oh, perfect. I mean, that's why I play Boyfriend Dungeon. Like. Oh my gosh. Amazing. Okay. Plug away. Tell us all about where we can find you and stuff.
Okay. So pretty much all my social media is my first and last name. So my Twitch channel is the only one that's different, twitch.tv/Jess. And then after that, I'm on Twitter, Instagram. I have a Facebook fan page, but I don't really use it. So I guess Twitter is the big one. It's just at Jess Brohard.
Yeah, and you also have a fan house. So if you like what Jess is doing, go to her Twitter. There's a link out to her fan house and support her that way. That's also an awesome thing to do. Oh my gosh, thank you so, holy moly. Like I didn't know where this conversation was going to go because I do like to do these, like we prepare, but it's very much like, let's see what we're both comfortable discussing at the time. Yeah. But this is amazing. This was so wonderful. Thank you for being so open and honest and willing to just like put yourself out there and your heart on your sleeve. And like, I don't know, if somebody in the audience immediately was helped by this, but like, I feel like somebody's going to stumble upon this later and be like,
I hope so.
Whoa.
I hope so. Cause that's like the only thing you can do. Like, that's like kind of one of the like core tenets of AA is like you get yourself sober. And then the only other thing you can do is like help other people get sober. And it's like, I have no agenda here. I just want people who have a problem to get help.
Thank you so much to everybody who is here. Go follow the heck out of Jess. We will be right back. I'm sure I'm going to not press the right button, but we are going to try to be right back. And thank you again, Jess. I appreciate you.
Thank you.